question I've had was specifically about divided loyalties. So we're going to look at that, and but first I'm just gonna own that I'm divorced, and that I initiated that divorce, and I have absolutely zero regrets about that. So the question, as I said today, is specifically around when children feel divided in their loyalties. Like, kind of, if I love one parent, I betray another. So let's just have a little look at what happens for children, the emotional impact of parents splitting up. I mean, you might not even be married and splitting up, or you're just separating, you know, there's different stages, isn't there? But that sense of feeling guilty as a child about your divided loyalties is very much a real thing. And what can happen, and I do see this often, is that for a child, one parent might seem or feel more important to be loyal to, as perhaps they are perceived as more likely to disappear, to move away. So there can be a tendency for a child to try to bond most strongly with the one parent that they feel is most likely to move away or to leave. There might be a sense of loyalty towards the parent who didn't initiate the divorce. You know, that they are the part, you know, the part that's been hard done by. And so, you know, that what happens emotionally for children there is that they might feel some sort of guilt about it all. Children will make it their fault, and that loyalty towards one parent will show up as perhaps being very hard on the other parents, kind of taking it out on them, blaming them, and sort of a lot of aggression towards actually the safer parent, the one that probably will stay. And there might be some sort of people pleasing towards the other, to the other parent, and there will be emotional volatility around that, or emotional suppression. So that divided loyalty can show up as like aligning really strongly with one parent and rejecting the other parent, and using conflict with the safe parent to discharge the internal stress of that, or kind of acting out to distract from the pain of that divided loyalty. That's what you will often see, at least. And of course, a separation, a divorce, is a loss of emotional security for a young person, for a child, for a teen. You know, even when a divorce is the healthiest option for the parents involved, or the whole family involved, it still represents a loss. They lose the illusion, perhaps, of permanence. They lose perhaps daily access to both parents, and they lose that kind of predictable family structure and story. And you know, children's brains are already, you know, teenagers' brains are already wired for kind of emotional intensity and identity formation, and this can feel really destabilizing. And so when that security drops, you know, you might see some increased defiance, school disengagement, withdrawal, more risk-taking, or regression in younger children. And I just, you know, that's a stress response. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, hopefully not in your case, but there might be a child that kind of takes on the burden of emotional caretaking. Like, it might not be terribly visible, but you'll often see a child who will take on an emotional role of sort of being the confidant or the peacekeeper, or just like be really easy and well behaved to help the parents. So the risks are obviously estrangements, becoming estranged from the other parent, from one of the parents, you know, really siding with one parent and rejecting the other one, and you know, and that's obviously devastating and very, very tragic, and to be avoided, I would say, at all costs. And the other really hard thing that, you know, kind of happens after a separation, or that can happen after a separation, is when one or both parents oops, we still here? Yes. Remarries or meets somebody else, and especially if there are other children, and you have that whole navigating blended families, that is a real flashpoint of difficulties. I did a course the other day around sort of divorce and estrangements for adults, and there was one sentence that really struck with me. You know, a child cannot tolerate a parent who chooses the new parent over them. Sorry, I said that wrong. The new partner over them. A child can't tolerate a parent who appears to choose the new partner over them. That's intolerable. And so if you're in that situation where you have a new partner, just really, really hear that from a child's perspective, that's intolerable. And it might be something that the child needs help to work on. But I want you to just hear that that's intolerable. That's an intolerable feeling. And so just make sure you choose your child in as many situations as you can, without being a pushover, of course. I think the worst thing in separations and divorces is when there's ongoing conflict between their parents. When, you know, when those parents are unresolved, are still in conflict, are still divorcing, if they hear criticism of the other parents, and if you are sharing too much, oversharing with them, if you're venting to them, that is what's really hard for them. So I think for the parents involved, it's about putting the oxygen mask on themselves, getting the help perhaps that they need to manage their own emotions in this. And I think some of the do's and the don'ts around this is you have to make that loyalty, that freedom to love both you and the other parent, you have to make that really explicit. You have to say it really clearly. You know, it's okay. You're allowed to love your dad and me, or me and your mum, and repeat it. There's no choosing. You love your dad. You love your mum. You don't have to choose. I'll never ask you to choose. Of course you love them. And keep saying it often. And the other thing is, if you are having to relate to the other parent and that upsets you in some way, then regulate yourself. Work out how to regulate yourself, whatever works for you, whether it's breathing or tapping or whatever it is, so that you can speak neutrally about the other parent to your child. If there are any questions coming in, pop them in the comment thing, and yeah, I can't see who's watching. I think it says there is a viewer, but who knows. I won't worry too much about it, but yes, make sure that you are clear, that you are neutral in the way you talk about the other parent to your child. That is so important, because any experience in a child of criticism of the other parent is like a criticism of one half of themselves. And keep adult emotions with adults. You know, if you can't handle what you're feeling, you know, you need to find a trusted friend and ask them to be your confidant, or preferably, in my opinion, get some therapy, or journal around it, write it out. What's that lovely book called? The Morning Pages, Julia Cameron. Just, you know, spend 5 minutes every morning just writing it out. So thank you, Emma Jane. I'm going to come to your question in a second. Writing out your feelings. Don't use your child as that emotional support. That will leave scars. So see what Emma Jane says. What when there is abuse what about when there's post separation abuse? And yeah, Emma Jane, I think I'm hearing you here that you feel that he is out to destroy you and your bond, your relationship with your own children, and what to do then. So I guess what you're experiencing is your children coming, and I don't know how old your children are, because your way of responding to this will depend on the age of your children. But I would say, you know, that the best way to deal with this is to just keep showing up as the good, loving parent that you are. It might take a while, but eventually your children will see the truth, and validate what they're feeling. So if there is oversharing, let's call it that, or as you're saying, you know, it feels like it's absolutely on purpose, I would really validate what they're saying, and I would tell them the truth. You know, I get that is hard, and I get that feels difficult for you, and that must be hard, and that doesn't feel right that you should have to hear that, and I'm sorry that whoever is telling you that. You do not have to choose between us, and I don't think that's fair. You do not have to choose between us, and I'm not asking you to choose between us. You are allowed to love us both. And you don't need to take care of me emotionally. You just have to be a child. That's your only job. And be as fair as you can be. Instead of entering into a slanging match in that situation, really work on how it makes you feel, so that you can just be talking to your children, maybe a little bit as if they were your best friend's children, and you don't want to do them damage. Let me know, Emma, how this is landing. You're very welcome to book yourself in for a way forward consultation, and we can talk more directly about this. You can find them on my website, I'm sure. If not, DM me, and I'll give you a link. If you are being, you know, so that's there's a toxicity going on there, and it's hard. It's really hard when you get that. I mean, I've had a lot. I was just talking to a mother earlier today, you know, where the daughter believed that the mum had moved away when the opposite was the case. and blamed the mum for having moved a long way away and just told a whole pack of lies about her. So your partner sounds like he's not even subtly doing this, but doing it out in the open. And I think you're just going to have to be as honest as you can without being unkind. And your strongest weapon here is keeping yourself calm, working through all the emotions in you so that you can kind of walk the talk of just being, that's really hard when he tells you that about me, and leave it hanging that, but you know who I am. I'm the one who's here for you. I'm the one who listens to you. So let me know. Let me know in the comments, Emma, if that is helpful. Oh, my live stream is experiencing performance issues. Okay, I don't know what that's about. So I wanted to just talk about the kind of, so constantly reassuring them that they don't have to choose between you, that they're allowed to love both of you, and that they don't have to take care of you. You have still got to take care of them. So we got to the keeping adult emotions with the adults, looking after yourself. And also another thing that's really helpful for children and teenagers is to maintain really predictable routines, because that consistency will calm their nervous system. So just really simple rituals can help. Sunday calls, same bedtime structure, shared calendars, that kind of thing. And if you do snap, if you are a human being and not the non-existent perfect parent, and you do lose it, you do overshare, you do snap, just own it. Say, that wasn't fair of me to say. That's adult stuff, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overshare. And you know, that repairing, that apologizing, that saying sorry, that really builds a lot of resilience. It's not about perfection, it's about resilience. And even if it's uncomfortable for you, try to help them have a relationship with the other parent. You know, that's long-term psychological health for your child. And I know it's hard on the old short-term pride for you, but I promise you it's a long game and it will pay off in the end. Okay, what else did I want to say? Oh, you know, it always takes two to tango. Even if it's an abusive one. Because in a sense, you should have set some boundaries earlier. I'm just saying, because I know it. A film that is useful to watch, I think it's from 2005, maybe. It might be that old, or maybe 15, I can't remember now. It's called The Squid and the Whale, and it's kind of a portrait of a dysfunctional family, and it just kind of gets you thinking. So that would be a good, I'd recommend you watch that film. What else did I want to say? Yeah, an interesting thing I thought that came up in this course that I was doing about estrangement for adult children, there were sort of two things. One was that mothers who initiate divorce are held to a higher standard. Hello, patriarchy. And that, you know, there are generational divides nowadays about what actually constitutes abuse and trauma, that there's a sort of much broader criteria of abuse and trauma now that, you know, an older generation simply does not get. So I think that's worth just bearing in mind as well. So I realize that this is, like I said at the beginning, each family is unique in their unhappiness, and there are as many constellations of difficulties around divorce as there are families, and different ages of children, and the blending is where it gets real fun. So I'm very happy to drill down in some of this. If you want to send me your questions on this or anything else related to parenting teenagers, and I will add it to my list. And just to finish off, the don'ts in a divorcing, separating situation is, don't ask them who they prefer to live with in a way that is loaded at all. That's an adult discussion about where, that's the routine. That's not, they don't get to decide that. Don't interrogate them about what happens in the other home when they're with the other parent. Don't compete for their affection. Do not buy their loyalty with gift or leniency. And do not make them keep secrets between you. And if you are having, like Emma Jane, if you are in a toxic or abusive relationship with a very emotionally immature person who put themselves before their children's happiness by being horrible about you to their face, you've got to play the long game. Yeah, not easy, but it's worth it. Right, I'm going to end here.